Okay, today what we're doing in 120 Anatomy and Physiology is we're going to finish off the disorders of the middle ear, as we said last week. And then what we'll do is a bit of a review of everything from the very beginning up through the tail end of the middle ear. Because as Rebecca Krauss says, we are a bit ahead of schedule in anatomy, so we have time to dither, time to dilly-dally, which is just great. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go over to share screen here, and we'll choose what we'll see as the middle ear, and we'll go to the end of it, near to where we finished last week. Last week we went through the acoustic reflexes, all that stuff. We talked about common misconceptions of the acoustic reflex, the disorders of the middle ear. Let's make sure we've got these down, and we will be covering disorders again this coming summer in a course called 125 Hearing Disorders. But just to give you a bit of an overview as to the basics that can go wrong with the middle ear, let's take a look here. The big one, of course, is otitis media. Oto, ear, itis, inflammation, media, middle. And look at the stages of it. Stages, like chapters in a book. Now, I said last week, you generally get to about the first 4. We don't see the last 2 anymore, but it begins with an upper respiratory infection, sore throat, in other words, swollen tonsils. And when that happens, your eustachian tubes up to your middle ears will not open when you swallow. So looking at the middle ear, eustachian tube, okay, this is not opening when you swallow. If that doesn't open when you swallow, you're going to get a vacuum because the mucus lining of the middle ear space consistently absorbs oxygen. And now your eustachian tube is sucked closed because you've got a vacuum in the middle ear space. So now you get a negative air pressure in the middle ear space, sucking the eardrum back. When that occurs, you've got a problem. You've got a vacuum. You're at stage 2 now, causing pain. The third stage, serous otitis media. Now your middle ear becomes filled with pus. So now when we look at the middle ear here, not 100% sure if we've got that in this particular PowerPoint. We do, yes we do. So here's normal eardrum. Here's the eardrum sucked back. Now look at that. That's gotta hurt. Look at the eardrum. It's laying on top of the promontory, which is between the oval window. Here's the neck of the stapes and the long process of the incus. And you can see that the eardrum is sucked all the way back. Here's part of the eardrum outside. This is pars tensa. But look at this area of retraction right here. So it's sucked back because of a vacuum in the middle ear space. The next stage is serous otitis media. Now you're getting a clear, non-infectious fluid building up behind the drum. And the fourth stage, now that becomes infected. So now you can see the bulged eardrum here, and you can see the umbo, the very middle of the eardrum, and it's completely bulged, and the fluid behind is infected. Now this is usually as far as we get today, but if this was left unchecked, you could get, oh, here's a pressure equalizing tube, and this is one of the treatments for otitis media. There are 3: tonsillectomy, antibiotics, tubes. Antibiotics, here I'm flipping you the bird, they are the, what do you call the worst one, because we're becoming immune to antibiotics, and people don't tend to take them all the way to the bitter end. So now the disease comes raging back. The next one was tubes. Instead of using antibiotics, they put a hole in the drum. A myringotomy is called a hole in the eardrum. Thus, and then they put a little plastic spool in so it stays, and that allows even air pressure on both sides of the drum. So if the eustachian tube won't open, who cares? If the back door won't open, let's just make a front door. Okay? That's the purpose of tubes. Now these grow out because the skin of the eardrum grows like a spiral out. And they last for a few months, and then the tube falls out. The oldest treatment for otitis media, of course, was tonsillectomy. And tonsillectomy was done all the time in the baby boomer years. And now it's starting to come back again, because prevention is worth an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You've got three kind of groups of kids. One kid never gets otitis media. Another kid gets it a few times, and the third group of kid gets it all the time. It's a genetic predisposition. And if you're getting otitis media all the time, get a tonsillectomy, adenoidectomy, and you'll stop the cause of the closed eustachian tubes in the first place. Now, the other stages of otitis media, of course, if left untreated, mastoiditis, because if you're looking at the bone surrounding the middle ear space, it's the porous mastoid bone. And when that mastoid bone, and if you put your finger behind your ear and feel that bone, that's mastoid bone too, okay? And it's a very porous bone filled with holes. It's very holy, okay? Very scripture-oriented, very holy. Anyway, it gets filled with infection, and when those holes get filled with infection, you cannot treat. Okay, it's too late. So they have to do a mastoidectomy. They take a drill and they burr away that whole bone. They usually remove your middle ear ossicles. You're left with a permanent conductive hearing loss, but it's better than the alternative, because if untreated, look at the thickness of this bone. It's 1/8 of an inch. And what's on top of the bone? Your brain. So if your brain gets infected, you have what's called meningitis, and then you die. Okay, treatment for otitis media, there you go. Otosclerosis is another pathology of the middle ear. Not as common. It is genetic, hereditary. Okay, notice I spelled hereditary wrong here. Sounds like it's hereditary. Hereditary. Nice going, Ted. Hereditary. Anyway, when you are looking at middle ear anatomy, and we work our way down, I'm wondering if I have a picture of otosclerosis. Yes, I do. Okay? Otosclerosis is a soft, porous growth of bone around the footplate of the stapes. See where I'm circling? It is genetic. More common in Caucasians than in other races. If mom or dad has it, it is likely one of the kids will get it. It develops in early adulthood. It prevents the stapes from pushing in and out of the oval window. It causes a conductive hearing loss. The treatment for otosclerosis, and the name oto, ear, sclerosis means hardening. But that's actually a stupid name. It should be called otoporosis. Like women post-menopause get osteoporosis, okay? A softening of the spine, okay? It's a soft growth of bone, not a hard growth of bone. So the term otosclerosis is a little bit misleading. Anyway, this growth of bone can be removed. The most common way they treat it is stapedectomy. They remove the stapes. They take some fat from underneath your skin behind your ear, and they stick it onto a titanium piece of steel like this, and this acts as a new stapes and oval window. Stapedectomy, okay? Ecto means to take out. So that's the most common treatment for otosclerosis. Otosclerosis, remember, is not a middle ear infection. Okay, it's not treated with antibiotics. It's not uneven air pressure behind the eardrum, that kind of stuff. That's otitis media. But remember what we said about the middle ear last week, and the week before. It adds 30 to 35 dB of sound pressure to your ear, because sound hits the big drum, and that force over a big area gets converged onto a little area. And remember what we said last week too. Therefore, we said, if you have this question, so make sure you are able to answer this question, okay? It's an important question. If the middle ear normally makes up some 30 to 35 decibels, then why can a conductive hearing loss be more than this? First of all, circle the word conductive. Conductive just means a blockage of the passage of sound to the inner ear. Like electrical wires conduct electricity, conductive means a mechanical blockage in the pathway. Make sure we know, and I'm reviewing here, okay? Make sure that we know the three contributions adding to what the middle ear does. The three contributions right here. 1, 2, and 3. Okay? The size of the eardrum relative to the size of the stapes. Pressure against your hand, force against your hand isn't much pressure. Force against your fingertip, lots of pressure. So the size of the drum relative to the footplate of the stapes is the biggest way that the middle ear increases sound pressure. The second way is the leverage action of the ossicles. The malleus is a little bit longer than the incus, and the ratio is 1.3 to 1. And there's again, the length of the malleus compared to the length of the incus and the fulcrum. This line is telling you the fulcrum upon which that lever turns, much like a teeter-totter or a seesaw. One end is longer than the other, so you gain an advantage. And the third one is the buckling action of the eardrum itself. So when you put these pieces together, you have a 17 to 1 pressure, a 1.3 to 1 pressure, a 2 to 1 pressure. Put them all together, you've got a 44 to 1 pressure increase. And then from 110 acoustics, you learned earlier, a couple of weeks ago, that when you increase the pressure by a factor of 10, you go up 20 dB. Increase the pressure by a factor of 100, you go up 40 dB. And a 44 to 1 pressure increase is somewhere between 10 and 100. And if you did the math, you'd end up with about a 30 to 35 decibel increase offered by the middle ear. So your question then, if the middle ear makes up that 30 to 35 decibels, why can a conductive loss be greater than this? And the answer is here. If you have a pathology like otitis media or otosclerosis, which blocks the pushing in and corresponding bulging out of the round window. Always remember that trade-off. If you have a pathology that blocks that trade-off, when you push the oval window in, the round window will bulge. If you pushed the round window in, the oval window would bulge. It's that trade-off. And when that trade-off is affected, and that's what this slide is telling you, if the trade-off is that interaction is gone, then your hearing loss will be greater than the 30 to 35 dB that the middle ear makes up. It can be 60 dB if you're testing with circumaural headphones. It can be even measured to be more than that if you're measuring with insert headphones. So the maximum degree of conductive hearing loss that you can possibly measure ultimately depends on the headphone, or as we use the word, the transducer used to test the hearing. And remember what the word transducer is. You're changing energy from one form to another. So a microphone changes sound into electricity, and a headphone changes electricity back into sound. So in a weird way, a headphone or a speaker is a backward mic, and a mic is a backward speaker. Okay? But this is an important slide. This slide here, and that question. You know why I say that? You're going to get a lot of audiologists graduating from university with their AUD degrees, and a lot of them can't answer that question. If you ask them, yeah, so I learned in school in anatomy class that the middle ear kind of adds about 30 to 35 decibels. They'll go, yep, that's right. Well, then how come a conductive hearing loss can be more than that? And you're going to watch them go, I'll get back to you. Let me get back. And that's what we're trying to create here. is a graduate that's not an IHS graduate, a graduate that knows more and knows a little bit more why. Instead of that, you learn a little bit how come. So otosclerosis as well will block that trade-off, that interaction between pushing into the oval window and bulging out. Back to our notes on disorders. We're almost finished the middle ear here. Otosclerosis. Usually the treatment is stapedectomy. And look at this. It's very hereditary, mostly Caucasian, more women than men, and especially when pregnant. That's because the little fetus is robbing mommy of some hard calcium. And when you're losing some calcium to the fetus developing inside of you, the bone is going to get especially porous around the foot plate of the stapes. So moms with otosclerosis may notice the otosclerosis getting worse when they're pregnant. All right. Another pathology, and this is a lot more rare, cholesteatoma. Now, a cholesteatoma often happens. I can draw this for you better than I can explain it. So if I'm drawing an eardrum, let's say that you had a hole in the eardrum, and I'll share screen and just show you the picture. Pretend the hole in your eardrum happened at the edge. If you've got a popped eardrum and the hole happened at the edge, that doesn't tend to heal very well. If you've had a lot of otitis media and your eardrum has popped a few times because of the infection, because of the bulging, and if the pop or the hole happens at the edge, a lot of times the skin can't heal properly. And the skin madly tries. And when the skin madly tries to heal, it develops weird cells. And the cells are benign cancer. And it forms a tumor. A tumor is a neoplasm, a new growth. It doesn't have to be malignant. Okay? Malignant just means it's like a spider web. You can't get it out. It's grown. You can't excise it. Benign just means it has a nice shape like an egg. You can get it out, okay? Oftentimes, cholesteatoma is a benign tumor, but it rapidly fills the middle ear space. If a doctor sees you have a cholesteatoma, you are usually scheduled for surgery the next day. Get it out. Because if it fills your middle ear space, which it will do rapidly, once again, it can invade the brain. If it gets into the mastoid cavities, and then you've got into the brain, you're dead. So again, a cholesteatoma, potentially lethal. Get it out. So let's go and read what it says. Cholesteatoma, benign, fast-growing tumor of the middle ear space. You don't need to memorize squamous epithelial carcinoma, but begins with a long-standing perforation at the edge of the eardrum near the annulus. Potentially lethal because the middle ear space is so close to the brain. Surgery is usually scheduled fast, capital A-S-T, F-A-S-T. The next one, patulous or patent eustachian tubes. Now, this can happen in people who've had chemotherapy for cancer or sudden weight loss. Not most of the time, women who've tried to lose weight too fast or have bulimia, eating disorders, anorexia, and they're not eating. And now your eustachian tube is always open. Remember we said the eustachian tube is like a bank, closed unless forced open, like government offices? Well, patulous or patent eustachian tubes is the other way. The eustachian tube doesn't close. And when the eustachian tube doesn't close because there's not enough fat lining the eustachian tube to keep it closed. Normally when you swallow, the end of the tube, pretend my hands is the end of the tube. It's a long tube. When you swallow, it turns like a square and opens and then goes like that. When you yawn or swallow, it opens for a sec. Now, if you haven't got enough fat on the eustachian tube to keep it closed, it's always a bit open. And when it's always a bit open, you're going to hear your own voice loud, like in a barrel. because the sound from your throat is going to go right whistling up the eustachian tubes into your middle ears. So the complaint is, I hear myself really loud like in a barrel. Gain weight. Okay, you got to gain weight because you've lost too much weight. So otitis media, otosclerosis, cholesteatoma, patulous or patent eustachian tubes. Enough on that for now. That's the main disorders of the middle ear. And reviewing the middle ear now, and actually, why don't we just start our little review? But let me ask you, do you have any questions in the anatomy class that are kind of difficult to resolve or that you're not sure of? Use this opportunity. If something comes to mind, ask me, and I can just try and answer you what I can, or I'll make up a lie, something. But if you have a question, let me know, okay? Otherwise, let's just kind of start from the beginning, and I have our notes, and I'm going to look at our notes on that overview of the entire ear. Overview of the entire ear, okay? Put a star by this sentence right there. Outer ear canal resonance. We'll talk about it in the next unit when I review the next unit, okay? But keep that. Keep that. And function of the middle ear. These two functions, changes and increases. Okay, it transduces sound into mechanical energy, and it increases sound pressure by about 30 to 35 dB. And then circle this. What happens if you've got a problem? Conductive hearing loss. What happens with excessive earwax? Conductive hearing loss. So outer and middle ear pathologies, everything of the ear that we've covered so far from the end of August until now, okay? All pathologies this way cause a blockage of sound getting to the inner ear. And all such blockages are called conductive pathologies. And what do? In all essence, they block the sound from a headphone. Okay, now this is what you're going to learn in audiometry class. Sound from a headphone is going to get blocked by the wax. It's going to get blocked by the otitis media, blocked by the otosclerosis or what have you. But if you took the headphones off and you placed a little box on the bone behind your ear, now if you put your hand on that little bone behind your ear and you put a little box on that, you're going to deliver the sound straight to the inner ear. So someone with otitis media, they may have a 50 decibel hearing loss through the headphone. Take off the headphone, put the little box on the mastoid bone, they'll hear like a baby. Okay? So we'll say, hey, your inner ear is fine. You've got a middle ear pathology. Conductive hearing losses are only 5% of the cause of hearing loss. Kids have otitis media. Some unlucky few have otosclerosis or cholesteatoma. 95% of hearing loss is caused by aging and noise-induced hearing loss. Aging is the most common cause. Noise-induced is the second most common cause. And both of these involve the inner ear. And so those causes do not, repeat, not cause a conductive hearing loss. They cause a different hearing loss. And the hearing loss they cause is called SNHL, sensory neural hearing loss. You can't fix it. It's permanent. No surgery. Nada. The only treatment for sensory neural is loved ones and hearing aids. Okay, that's why we have a field. That's why you have a program, because most loss is sensory neural. You can't, if all loss was conductive, you would hardly have a need for our field at all. Okay, back to Unit 1. Cochlea, inner ear. Have a look-see. This is the center of the universe. So right here, sensory and neural. You have two sets of hair cells inside of your inner ears. We will study these after your midterm. Okay? Right now, just suffice to say, you have outer hair cells and you have inner hair cells. Inner hair cells take info and send it to your brain. Outer hair cells get information from your brain. Okay? But enough on that. We'll cover that another day. But that just suffice. Just make sure you have that down. And then you have, and here we go, most common sensory neural loss is presbycusis. Okay, right there. I'll put a star by that. Make sure you got it. Cranial nerve. Realize that that's the nerve that sends all info to your brain from the cochlea. And eighth nerve pathology is called retrocochlear pathology. It's usually a tumor. And it's always on one side. You never have bilateral tumors of the eighth nerve. Okay, it's always one ear or the other ear. It's rare. Look at how rare it is. 1 in 100,000. 1 in 100,000 people. Okay? Look at these guys. Make sure you have these things down. And there's another couple of terms I'm going to give to you just to write them in here. One's called afferent, A-F-F-E-R-E-N-T, afferent, afferent. And the other one's called efferent, E-F-F-E-R-E-N-T, afferent, efferent. Afferent refers to info going to your brain. So the eighth nerve, it's afferent. Okay, it's sending info to your brain. Efferent means brain back to your body. So efferent nerves are nerves to your muscles. Okay, nerves to your muscles are efferent, and sense nerves like vision, touch, taste, hearing, those are afferent because sense information goes to your brain and motor muscle information goes from your brain. Okay, afferent, efferent. And then in this first section here, conductive and sensory neural. Look at that quite carefully. It's an overview. And you know what? I don't think this is on your test. I'll tell you honest to truth. I'll bet you dollars to donuts this stuff barely appears on your midterm. I don't care. Look at it carefully because this paragraph that I've grayed out here is a summary of your entire profession. This is what makes us different from opticians. This is what makes us not optometrists. Hearing loss is so different from vision loss. Vision loss is conductive. You wear glasses to focus light properly on the retinas of the eyes. You go to the dollar store and buy these. You put them on your nose and on your face and you can see. Well, a hearing aid, hearing loss is like me going to the back of your eyeballs and scratching your retinas. Now go ahead and wear your glasses. Okay? That's why hearing aids are called hearing aids. If you wanted to think about a hearing aid in terms of glasses, think about having to wear glasses to help you tell what colors they are. That would be like our field. If you couldn't tell red from green from blue, and you needed glasses to help cure your color blindness, that's what we are. Okay? Because it's the retina in quotes of the ear that's ruined. That's what makes us, hearing aids and people mix like oil and water. That's what makes optometry shops and optical shops so happy, and why hearing aid shops don't have that luxury. When you go to an eyeglass place, the mood is upbeat. There's plants, there's waterfalls, there's, as I said, beautiful people showing their glasses. Everybody's just cool, and I'm picking the frames, and it's fashion, because vision loss is conductive, and it hits you any decade of life, okay? Hearing loss ain't. So you are what you are, and you ain't what you ain't. All right, back at it. Now let's go to the outer ear. I thought that it's very important, I think, to see that particular slide, or that one there. Okay, let's go to the outer ear and cover some things that we need. Whoa, not that. Let's go to here. Come on, outer ear. There we are. How are you today? Okay. Can you see this outer ear anatomy? You with me there? Good. Okay. Meatus, external auditory meatus. Okay, adults, it's about 1 inch long. And we'll stop saying inch now because in science we use metric. And metric is better than inches. So all science uses metric, even in Trump land, even south of the 49th. Okay? And you go into physics or chemistry or biology, all of a sudden it's metric. Anyway, the ear canal is about 98.6 degrees or 37 degrees Celsius. Everybody in the world except you uses Celsius. Right now, outside where I live, it's about 10 degrees. Please don't think that's freezing. Okay? It's about 50 your degrees. To change Celsius into Fahrenheit, multiply by 2 and add 30. 10 times 2 is 20, add 30, you're at 50. Okay, so outside of my house today, it's 50 degrees. 10 degrees, I just thought I'd tell you. Okay, outer ear canal is surrounded by mastoid portion of the temporal bone. Put a star by that because it's all porous. It's very holy, lots of holes in there. And know that the outer half of the ear canal is where the skin covers cartilage. And the best demo I can give you of that is your nose. We grab the end of your nose, you can move it. Top of your nose, you can't. The skin covers bone here, covers cartilage here. Same with the ear. The inside, the skin covers bone. The outer half, the skin covers cartilage. The skin, the cartilaginous portion is where hair grows in old men's ears, and it's where wax is produced. So cerumen, earwax, is produced in the outer half of your ear canal, and it naturally would migrate outward. But we North Americans are in love with Q-tips. So we take Q-tips and we jam them in. And all you're doing is pushing the wax further into the bony portion of the canal, where it never was in the first place. Okay? So just FYI, a lot of Asians are smarter than we are. They use a little tiny hook, and they actually go in and pull the wax out. It's a more intelligent way of handling earwax than Q-tips. Just thought I'd tell you. Like the doctors say, never put anything in your ear smaller than your elbow. Okay, moving on down the page. How do you do an otoscopic examination? How do you look inside someone's ear canal? You pull the ear up and back. The ear canal, unlike pictures like this, is not a straight tunnel. Okay, your ear canal is a dog leg. It's got 2 bends in it. And to straighten the ear canal so that you can look and see the eardrum, you've got to pull the ear up and back. Very important. Know that the eardrum has 3 layers to it. Okay, put a star by TMJ. You should know that that often is an arthritis of the jaw. And the protrusion of your jawbone, mandible, into the osteocartilaginous junction of the canal. Look at that. And now you know what that is, where the bony portion of the canal meets the cartilaginous portion of the canal. Right underneath there, you've got the top of your jawbone jamming in. Okay? Can cause TMJ, causes otalgia, ear pain. The eardrum, 3 layers. It's the only part of your body that retains the original 3 layers of tissue. From when you were an embryo, before you were even a fetus, the embryonic disc, after conception, after several splits of cells, a tiny little thing, no bigger than an aspirin, okay, has 3 layers of tissue: endo, meso, ecto. And endo turns into slimy things like your guts and intestines. Mesoderm turns into bones and muscles. And ectoderm forms skin and nerve tissue. Know the landmarks of your eardrum. Memorize this. Umbo, manubrium of the malleus, the annulus, the ring on the outside. The nodes of Ranvier. The nodes of Ranvier. Now we look at the nodes of Ranvier. See if we have this in our notes here. Take a look-see. Okay, when you're looking at an eardrum, dead on, you will see various landmarks. These are what you need to know, because you as HISs are going to be looking in people's ears all the time. You're going to have to look in someone's ears even before you do a hearing test, because you want to know if there's wax in the ears. You're going to for sure be looking in the ears when you take an ear mold impression for hearing aids. Okay, so this is the part you're going to see the most. The hostess with the mostest knows where to look. So here you go, the right ear, annulus, right where I'm tracing. Nodes of Ranvier, pars flaccida, pars tensa. So the nodes of Ranvier separate the pars tensa from the pars flaccida. Then you will see the manubrium of the malleus. And you can see that right here, the manubrium of the malleus. And where is that coming from, of course? That would be coming from, well, let's see. See, it'll be right here. The manubrium of the malleus. You can see it through the eardrum. And this little part here would be the umbo. So as you are looking at that there, it's the middle. And then you have the cone of light. Remember, that's at 5 o'clock in the right ear, and it's at 7 o'clock in the left ear. So just by looking at the eardrums, you should be able to tell which ear it is. Okay? Very important. So these are landmarks. Now, the cone of light does not exist by itself. The cone of light is simply a reflection off of your otoscope. That's all it is. It's an artifact. Doesn't mean much, but it's a landmark nonetheless. Outer ear. Move on through, and we get to the good part. Physiology of the outer ear. Make sure we know this. Okay? The ear is a quarter wave resonator. The ear canal being 2.5 centimeters long, because it is like a cup, because it has a shape like, I don't know, here's my pen thing, okay? The bottom here, and it's open there, okay? Only it's longer. The ear canal is a cylinder closed at one end. All such objects resonate at sound waves 4 times their length. So you will remember from acoustics, okay? Frequency equals speed of sound over the wavelength. Wavelength equals speed of sound over the frequency. So write these down with me while you're scrolling. If you do this, it's better to do this, okay? WL equals 340 divided by F. And F, frequency, equals 340 divided by WL, wavelength. The 340 is always on the top. So wavelength is speed of sound over frequency. Frequency is speed of sound over wavelength. Good. Let's look at frequency as speed of sound over wavelength. What sounds is the ear going to naturally resonate with, especially the outer ear canal? It's going to resonate with sound waves 4 times the length of the ear canal. The ear canal is 2.5 centimeters long. So it's going to resonate with sound waves that are 4 times 2.5, which is 10. 10 centimeters is like 10 fingernails, all stuck together. So you got, here's a centimeter, okay? And I always choose the middle finger because I can always just flip. Always remember, the Russian eagle is 5 times as strong as the American bird, right? What's this? A bouquet of these. No, I'm just teasing. Now, a centimeter is the width of your fingernail. Okay? So you're thinking your ear canal is about, about this long. Okay? About 2.5 of these. So it's going to resonate with sound waves that are 10 centimeters long. What's a 10 centimeters? It's a tenth of a meter. So you have to do meters to meters. You can't do 340 divided by 10. That doesn't make sense. Sound goes 340 meters per second divided by 10 centimeters, which is 0.1 meter. So 340 divided by 0.1 gives you 3,400. Okay, just do the math. Just hit your calculator. 340 divided by 0.1 is 3,400. Well, that's exactly what the middle ear resonates with. Share screen, look at PowerPoint. Outer ear pathology. Go over to here, down the page. There you go. There's the resonance of your outer ear canal. Your ear canal is made of flesh and bone, not out of steel or glass. So that resonance at 3,400 is going to be spread. And in the typical human ear, the resonance of your outer ear canal falls between 1,500 hertz and 4,000 hertz. And it has a peak at around 2,700 hertz. It really hurts. So it adds about 20 decibels. And that's important because what does that do? Well, shoot, here's the sounds of speech on an audiogram. This is a hearing test. 250 hertz, 500, 1,000, 2,000. Look at the consonants. They're the softest sounds. They need that lift. So the ear canal, being its properties that it is naturally lifting the soft, high-frequency consonants because these are only about 20 decibels, whereas the vowel sounds are louder. So literally, your outer ears are made for speech. And having said that, here, resonance of your ear canal, number 5. Resonance of your concha bowl, 5,000 to 6,000 hertz. Put them together, you got T for total. So when you're looking at T for total here, where is it over? 2,700 hertz. And what's T for total worth? About 20 decibels. So all Ted Venema did was take this slide and make it simple. So this is my slide. This is the research slide. All I did was take the T, there you go, I put it here. Okay? But understand the relationship between this picture and this one. It's telling you the same thing. This one's just more detailed. That's all. Don't worry about pinna-phalange, but all these things. This is why your outer ear has its weird shape. Back to outer ear physiology so we can finish that one off. If you're looking at outer ear physiology, there's another thing. So this stuff in black here, this whole stuff here, know this. It's really important. Because when you take a hearing aid and you put it in someone's ear, you've lost that love and feeling. Okay? You've lost this guy here. You've plugged it. You took a hearing aid and you stuck it in here. So now you've lost this quarter wave resonance. It's gone. Okay? So hearing aids have to make up for that. This is just all part and parcel of knowing what's going on in our field. Okay, to the notes again here, another thing you should commit yourself to knowing is about the occlusion effect. Because hearing aids also block your ears. They occlude your ears. And the occlusion effect is very natural, and we've done this before, and we've talked about it before. There's the lay definition and the professional definition. The lay definition. My voice is louder when my ear is plugged. So take your finger, push it in your ear, and now talk to me. Say hello. Talk. When you're talking, where do you hear yourself? I can't hear you. McKenna, you're not plugging your ear anymore. Okay? When you talk, when your ear is plugged, you hear yourself louder in the ear that's plugged. That's the occlusion effect. Hearing aids always have holes in them to stop the occlusion effect. Okay? You hear yourself louder than you hear other people. When other people are talking, you hear them through the air. When you hear your voice, when you hear yourself talking, you hear yourself through the air and through the bone. That's why you hear yourself differently than others hear you. When you hear a recorded version of your voice, you hate it. Everyone else thinks it sounds like you. You're the only one that hates it. And that's because for the first time, you're hearing yourself as others heard you, through air only. Okay? It's because of the occlusion effect. Sound is going through bone. Okay? You're hearing yourself through bone. Now define the occlusion effect the real way. Because you're not always walking around with your ear plugged. Okay? But read what it says, and I can just tell you from memory. the definition of the occlusion effect. Okay, low frequency, that's number one. Number two, bone conducted sound. That's number two. Number three, resonates the mass of your skull. So low frequency, bone conducted sound, resonates the mass of your skull. Two more now. Which in turn vibrates the cartilaginous portion of your canal. And number five, plugging your ear prevents this from escaping. Occlusion effect. So now plug your ear and say the letter S. 1, 2, 3. It's not much louder. Plug your ear and say the letter M. 1, 2, 3. A lot louder. See? Is lower pitch than S. So occlusion effect is a low frequency phenomenon. And by the way, steps 1, 2, and 3, what I just said to you, is why you hear your voice differently than others hear your voice. Because low frequency bone conducted sounds resonate the mass of your skull. And you have that when you talk. That's why you sound better to yourself, because you sound richer, a bit more rounded, because you're hearing yourself through the air as well as through the bone. And it's the lows of your vowels that are resonating the mass of your skull. All the stuff fits together. Okay, onward and upward, share screen. So now you're basically done. And the tuning fork test that uses the occlusion effect is called the Bing test. And you can use a tuning fork if you want to, but you don't have to. But I'll use one here and share screen so you can see me. There's a tuning fork. Watch. I'm putting it on the mastoid bone. I hear it. Plug my ear, it's louder. Unplug my ear, it's softer. Plug my ear, it's louder. Unplug my ear, it's softer. It's based on the occlusion effect, the Bing tuning fork test. And like Bob Dylan said, though, you don't need a weatherman to tell which way the wind blows. Lick your finger and stick it up in the air. So you can do the Bing tuning fork without the tuning fork. Talk and plug your ear. And when you're humming and you plug your ear, you should get the occlusion effect. If you don't, Houston, you have a problem with your middle ear. Okay? So who gets a normal occlusion effect? People with normal hearing. And secondly, people with sensory neural old age hearing loss. Because both of those populations have no problem with the middle ear. Who has no occlusion effect? The kid with otitis media. Because that's the person who's got a problem with the middle ear. Okay? Good. Now, this was to review the outer ear. Just what we did. The salient points of the outer ear. Know the landmarks of the drum and the physiology. Basically, the resonance is the physiology. And also know what the occlusion effect is. And at the end of those notes, you're going to see words called stenosis. You'll see the words atresia. Make sure you know what those are as well. Okay, very good. When we go to the middle ear now, we'll go back to the good old middle ear. And I'll just outline what you need to know in the middle ear. I wouldn't freak too much about this at all. Who cares? Okay? How big is the eardrum? And how big is the middle ear space? The middle ear space is as big as a sugar cube. How big is the eardrum? As big as the tip of your little finger or tip of your finger when you look at it. In other words, how big is your eardrum? About the size of a dime. And by the way, dimes in Canada are exactly like dimes in the States. Same size. Nickels here, same size. Quarters here, same size, right? We copy you guys, except our dollars are prettier. Yours are all green. Ours are red, blue, green, yellow. We have more European stuff. Anyway, I don't know why I'm telling you that. It's got nothing to do with anatomy. But anyway, so all this stuff here is kind of extra. I wouldn't, you should know what the space is. Epitympanic recess. That's going to be the space above the epitympanic recess here. Tympanum, the space above your eardrum. And then you have this additus ad antrum is the space over here. And basically, working our way, no, I don't want outer ear, I want middle ear. Working our way down, you know what the eustachian tube is, you know about the oval, the round window, the promontory. Make sure you have that down. You, of course, know the ossicles by now, otherwise you'd be brain dead, so you know what that is. And then the parts to, yeah, the middle ear muscles, the muscles. Okay? Know the stapedius muscle and the tensor tympani muscle. These form the acoustic reflex. And know which cranial nerves innervate each of these muscles. The tensor tympani is the bigger of the two muscles, and it is also the weaker of the two muscles. So if I look at this here on a picture, if we look here, the tensor tympani muscle attached to the manubrium of the malleus, and the stapedius muscle attached to the neck of the stapes. Don't worry about these guys. These are just ligaments. These are ligaments holding the ossicular chain in place. This is the stapedius muscle, and this is the tensor tympani muscle. The tensor tympani muscle is the weaker of the two muscles, even though it's the larger. The tensor tympani muscle is innervated by the fifth, look at your fingers, 5 of them, okay, cranial nerve, and the stapedius muscle is innervated by the 7th cranial nerve. How many pairs of cranial nerves do you have? 12. How many are involved in our field? 3. The 5th, the 7th, and the 8th. Okay? So these are, the 8th cranial nerve is for sensory information of sound to the brain. The 5th cranial nerve innervates the face and the cheeks, so does the 7th. Okay? The 5th cranial nerve is sometimes called the trigeminal nerve. The 7th cranial nerve is the facial nerve, helps you smile, move your cheeks. Okay? Anyway, looking back at your notes here, the physiology of the middle ear, make sure you have the 3 ways that it improves things. And here again, middle ear transduces or changes energy from one form to another, just what we said at the beginning. And the second thing is, it overcomes the impedance mismatch between air and fluid. In other words, it increases the sound pressure by 30 to 35 dB. And we went over why that is. Those 3 factors: size of the drum, the leverage action, the buckling action of the eardrum, and those 3 things stuck together. When you put that all together, you've got the ways of overcoming the impedance mismatch between air and fluid. So, if I take a look at this, we have these reasons here that we talked about. And if you want a demonstration of that, you do the Rinne tuning fork test. And here's the tuning fork. You hear it, put it on the mastoid. I hear it, hold it here, way louder. Here, softer. I still hear it through bone conduction. Here, louder. Why? Because I'm getting that added 30 to 35 dB that the middle ear is giving me, the gift of the middle ear. So now you have 2 tuning fork tests. There's only 4 that doctors use. You've now learned 2 of them. One's based on the occlusion effect. It's the Bing test. One is an eloquent demonstration of what the middle ear adds to incoming sound, the 30 to 35 dB. And why do you need to do that? Because of the impedance mismatch. The cochlea is filled with fluid. Airborne sound would bounce off a fluid fluid-filled snail shell called the cochlea. You need that extra oomph to help airborne sound activate a fluid-filled cochlea. And in your notes, that's why I wrote about the swimming pool. If your head is under a pool and I'm talking to you, my voice is going to bounce right off the water. That's called an impedance mismatch. Another demo of the impedance mismatch is do a belly flop. It hurts. You had an impedance mismatch. You were sailing through the air and landed on the water. Yep, water is harder than air. It's called an impedance mismatch. So the middle ear overcomes that impedance mismatch between air and fluid. Lastly, got 5 minutes here. I'll take them. The last thing we need to cover about the middle ear and make sure you know is the acoustic reflex done by these middle ear muscles. And now what is the acoustic reflex? And we whistle on down here, go to the acoustic reflex, and there you are. Oh, by the way, resonances of the middle ear, make sure you know the resonance of the middle ear ossicles is 2,000 hertz. The resonance of the middle ear ossicles is 2 grand. The acoustic reflex arc, right here, put a star by that. There you see those words, afferent, efferent, afferent, efferent. And we look at a picture of it, and you'll see it as we work our way down. Here's a boring picture. It's a weird picture, but look at the picture for a second. Outer ear canal, middle ear. You can see a crude drawing of the malleus, the stapes. You can see the tensor tympani muscle, stapedius muscle, and then this weird honeycomb-shaped thing called the cochlea. Okay, so follow my cursor. Outer ear, middle ear, inner ear, 8th nerve, and then this whole area here is brain stem. Now your brain stem, by the way, your brain stem is really about as thick as this pencil, okay? But in this picture, this schematic, they're making it look like it's huge. So here's your brain stem, and you've got all these areas, whatever. Don't worry about them. I don't care, couldn't care less if you look at the names. Don't. Follow my cursor. 7th nerve goes to the stapedius muscle. 5th nerve goes to the tensor tympani muscle. So now watch. Afferent, efferent. That's why they call it the acoustic reflex arc. That's why they give it this arc, A-R-C. It's got a brain going and brain leaving, like a letter C. Okay? It's going, coming and going. And of course, there's no bias in my family. It's all in me, because I like my picture better. So when you're looking over here, you'll see the same thing, acoustic reflex arc. So follow my cursor again. Loud sounds, hit the drum, malleus incus stapes, cochlea, all afferent, 8th nerve, brain stem, and then 5th nerve to tensor tympani, 7th nerve to stapedius muscle. And why do I draw on this side? Because once you hit the brain stem, you have decussation, D-E-C-U-S-S-T-I-O-N, crossover. You got crossover. So a loud sound in one ear is going to cause an acoustic reflex in both ears. Okay? A loud sound in one ear is going to cause an acoustic reflex in both ears. And why do you have acoustic reflexes in the first place? Why do you have them in the first place? Read here. Some say acoustic reflex is nature's protection against noise exposure. Not necessarily true. Acoustic reflexes reduce the loudness of your own voice while you speak. You hear other people talking, remember from acoustics, at about 65 decibels. You hear yourself at 85. 65 is through air, 20 is through bone. You hear yourself louder than other people do. The acoustic reflex occurs to temporarily, while you're talking, it tightens the middle ears. It pulls, those two muscles pull on the middle ear ossicles, making your middle ear work poorer, okay, on purpose. So it's nature's way of making your middle ear work worse. Why? To dull the loudness of your own voice while you speak. Because you hear yourself through air conduction and bone conduction, whereas you hear other people only through the air. I'm done. Okay, so it's been an hour. This has been a review. I've had you circle or star salient points. I think if you people have all watched the Zoom sessions, and if people miss a part of a Zoom session, please don't just start in where you left off. Make sure you watch the whole thing. But if you have and you look at these notes, you're going to ace any midterm coming. Easy peasy Japanesey. Okay, right now it is what, September 25. I'm not 100% sure as to when Rebecca Krause is having your midterm in this course. Do any of you have an idea of that? Can you tell me when that would be? Do you know or not? I don't know exactly when. It's probably the first week of October, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll email her to ask, and I will gladly do another review session next week. I'm happy to do it if people want. I will show up. If people do, great. I may email you all as a group too, because this coming Tuesday, I will not be at home. You won't see this weird green thing behind me here and this door sitting behind here. I'll probably be in a hotel room. I'm going to be doing a talk at a conference, but I'll still do the Zoom sessions because I'll have my own hotel room. So I'll probably be doing it at a different time. It may not be exactly the same time, but I will email people as a group and let you know exactly when I want to do the Zoom session, and you can tune in that way as well. And I think that then last Zoom session next week is going to be, if I look at my calendar here, next week Tuesday is the 2nd of October. I think your midterms are after that. So I think we have the room for one more Zoom session, and I believe your midterms, if I look at my calendar, let's see what I've got here.
I got it for Wednesday the 10th.
Yeah, I see that too. Yep, I've just got, thank you. Yep, OTC midterms, they start on the 10th. Yep. So we have room for one more Zoom session before then, and I will keep you apprised as to exactly when that will be. Okay? Adios, amigos. It's been a slice. You're welcome.